Everyone's asleep right now, so I'm going to try and read quietly. Hopefully you can still hear me. Oh, she looked suitably chastened. Not just the people who summoned him, Gav continued, looking at both of them. It was really, really important that they understood this part. He did not need a would-be hero deciding that it would be no great loss if a few dark wizards lost their souls. Depending on how much leeway the incorrect diagram gives, he might tear a hole in the fabric of reality the size of this room, or the castle, or maybe even the surrounding kingdom, if he gets enough momentum going. What do you mean a hole? Alicia asked, looking unsure as to whether he was being hyperbolic. Well, I mean, instead of a castle, there'll be a giant black gaping maw that attempts to suck anything that gets near it until reality managed to patch itself back together, Gav said and shivered, and when it does, it's like someone sewed the edges of a hole in a piece of fabric shut. It's uneven and it puckers a bit, and if you start on one side, you suddenly skip over to the other side, and whatever used to be in the middle is gone. Some people think some of the weirder edges of the world are places where reality healed itself. Like the Iliad Forest or the Great Swamp, Fiari ventured. Gav shrugged. He wasn't sure what either of those were. Might be. It's not like anyone who was there would still be there afterwards to explain it to people. Right, said Alicia. Make sure the diagrams are correct. What's next? Gav looked back at the papers. Next are the anchor points. It looks like those are 3. There are 3. The tears of a dragon, the silence of a monk, and the seed of one of the lesser demons. So where are you supposed to get those? Alicia asked. It's not like they're just any dragons laying around. Gav shook his head. We already have them, or at least, excuse me, I presume we do. Zaxxus's assignment was to retrieve the dragon tears. Valvina got the, he realized he was blushing. She charmed a demon? Alicia asked. She would. How do you get the silence of a monk? Fiari wondered. Gav found the answer popped into his mind. I'm assuming that one was there, Konar. There are ways to draw off an essential quality of a person. They're not nice. It was Alicia's turn to shiver. No, it wouldn't be. Gav didn't want to think about it too hard, so at sunset on the night of the new moon, the essences of the 3 anchor points are poured into specific places in the diagram, each by a wizard. The 4th stands in the center with... He stopped, regretting that he'd begun by reading this out loud. He should have read it in his room first. With, Alicia prompted. Gav made himself continue. With a virgin of royal blood. She nodded. We knew that I had to be in there somewhere. Then what? He swallowed. Then we recite the incantation, and no, I'm not saying a single word of it right now. She nodded, looking pale. This was the part he hadn't wanted to say. But in it, we promise that as sacrifice he will... But in it, he promises that as a sacrifice he will spill her blood. Fiari closes his eyes. Alicia, though, looked at him intently. What exactly does that mean? Would a finger prick work, or is he planning to cut my throat? If I could manage to avoid dying, would that keep the spell from being completed? Or are we doomed if he manages to spill so much of it as a drop? Gav fumbled with the papers. He hadn't actually thought beyond spills the blood part, and had rather expected her to be caught up short by that bit too. He should have known that she was made of stronger and more thoughtful stuff. Heart's own blood. It looks like he has to stab you in the heart. Not just a little, then, Fiari clucked grimly. I don't know if that's good or bad, Alicia said, leaning back. How is that anything but bad? Fiari exclaimed, his feather fluffing out. Well, obviously... Oh. Obviously, it would have been nice if the spell hadn't required my death, Alicia said, but it's not like Zaraconar was likely to send me toddling home when this was all done anyway. And if it requires heart stabbings, then they can't set off the spell by accident if I get a splinter. We have 3 pages of diagrams and another two of things to chant, Gav said. There is no way to set this off accidentally. But if someone, say, pushed me at the right moment and I just got scratched instead of stabbed, we wouldn't end up with my life being saved. With the gateway opening anyway, Alicia pointed out. No, we'd have the gate open, but a very cranky dark god not getting his promised sacrifice, Gav said, and no one in that room is going to have a good day after that. What happens next? Asked Alicia. What does it matter? Fiari demanded. I don't know if it matters, Alicia said. That's why I want to know. Then together the 3 outer wizards extend one hand into the circle, and then, the other 2 prompted. That's it, Gav said, looking up from the papers helplessly. That's all the pages. You forgot to copy the last page? Fiari made a rude noise with his beak. I didn't forget to copy the last page, Gav replied acidly. He wondered if he kicked the rooster how far he would fly. Not very. The walls of the cell were too close. Smashing into a wall would be all right, too, though. That's all the pages that were there. Zaraconar must have kept the last page somewhere else, maybe on himself. So no one can do the spell without him, said Fiari. He might even have memorized it, said Alicia, if it's short enough. It might not be here at all. Does it matter? Gav echoed the earlier question. The order of this kind of thing is always the same. There's a summoning and a binding circle, and that's the components and the chanting and the hands bit. That's all the components and the chanting and the hands bit. Then there's the sacrifice. The last part will be the bargaining and the dismissing. The dismissing step would have been nice to have, but if he shows up having been promised a royal virgin sacrifice, the dismissal won't work until he has his sacrifice. We know enough. It doesn't matter what happens in the last part if we know we have to keep the sacrifice step from happening at all. Why do you care? Fiari asked. You kidnapped her in the first place. You had to have known what was going to happen. Gavarax kidnapped her, Gav pointed out, and he might not have known. You're Gavarax, Fiari said, rolling his eyes, and you should have at least guessed. I don't know what Gavarax knew, Gav insisted. This is a very awkward position for my neck. I'm trying to be close enough that you can hear me, and I'm not sure how that's going. I don't know what Gavarax knew, he insisted, but I didn't know, and I do know, and now I do know, and I don't want to do it. Why should we believe you? The rooster demanded, his wobbling comb undercutting his challenge. I'm here, aren't I? Gav said, exasperated. Why would I bother talking to you at all? To fool us into a false sense of security, Fiari crowed, literally. That, Gav rubs his nose, that doesn't make any sense. None of it matters unless we have a plan, Alicia said quietly. This goes beyond me. How are we going to stop them? We can't tamper with the diagram, said Gav. Could we tamper with the spell components? Alicia asked. I only have access to one of them, Gav pointed out. Well, I can't become less royal, Alicia said, staring at her hand. She looked up. I could stop being a virgin, though. No, Fiari snapped. No, we're not considering that. It's better than letting them succeed, Alicia pressed on. Gav ran through the list of possibilities for people who could help Alicia with that, particular condition. Fiari was a rooster. The other two wizards couldn't be asked, and neither could their respective retinues. If they weren't interested in opposing Zaraconar, neither Valvina nor Zaxus would be willing to help here. Sirocco had turned out not to be as bad as he had thought, but if he wasn't interested in women, there was a question of whether he'd be able to help even if he consented. He didn't really see the goblins having much appeal. There was a village full of people outside the walls, but he didn't think much of his chances of smuggling one in. For once in his life, he was at the top of the list. His stomach soured. Even if it had started as her idea, it was not the same as her actively wanting him. Gavarax might have enjoyed it. The thought made Gav sick. He shook his head. It doesn't really matter. They've already done the test to make sure you're a virgin, so it's not like it would stop them in advance. They won't know otherwise until the spell fails, and then you're already dead. But the spell would fail, Alicia repeated. Well, yes, but you would be dead. Might be worth it, she said. No, Gavarax and Fiari said together. They exchanged a glance. We'll figure something out, Fiari said. She slumped a little. He hadn't even realized how rigid she had been holding herself. I guess it doesn't matter. Even if the demon decided it didn't count as a sacrifice and got angry and refused their bargain, having an angry demon who can't go home is probably not great for reality anyway. They silently contemplated the idea of a major demonic temper tantrum. Oh, good, I did start it. For a second, I thought I might not have. I can't go up against them again ahead of time, Gav confessed. I'm just not strong enough. Link. Come at me. Good boy. But they need 4 wizards in total to cast the spell, she pointed out. If you chickened out, can they still cast? Rooster, Fiari interjected automatically. They both looked at him. Carry on. Not unless they get a replacement, Gav said slowly, and I doubt they could do it on short notice. They would have to wait a month. And in the interim, maybe Arathorna or some of her heroes might come up with a plan that would actually work. There you go, Fiari said, shaking his feathers. What will they do to you if you refuse? Alicia asked after a moment's pause. Kill me, probably very painfully, Gav said. He swallowed. He wasn't sure he was brave enough to sacrifice himself. He wasn't sure he wanted to be brave enough. Alicia shook her head. So that won't work either. Fiari made a rude noise. Gav closed his eyes in relief. What if you just disappeared, left entirely? Oh, he wanted to. But he wasn't sure he was brave enough to stand. But if he wasn't sure he was brave enough to stand up to Zaraconar, he also wasn't enough of a coward to flee. Honestly, Zaraconar would probably hunt me down as an example, but even if he didn't, there's the castle staff and the villagers. Even if Zaraconar doesn't take his rage out on them, there's no telling how many the heroes will slaughter on their way in. This has to end tomorrow before Arathorna blows up the castle or something. What about the others? She asked. Zaxus and Valvina? He opened his eyes. Zaxus, I don't think anything will sway him. I don't think consequences really bother him as long as he can satisfy his curiosity. I think maybe he would be willing to let the entire world end if it meant he could find out how it worked. And Valvina? He thought. Maybe she's got a healthy sense of self-preservation. And the missing page, it might be missing because he doesn't want us to be able to cast it by ourselves. But it also might be missing because he doesn't want us to know something. How hard was it to get the spell? Very. Hey, Link. I know. They're fine. Come here. How hard was it to get the spell? Very. He remembered how terrifying the entire ordeal had been. And then he thought, not hard enough, actually, was it? Alicia nodded. Talk to her. Emphasize that. There's something he's not telling you. Maybe only the central wizard gets the power. That would be like Zarakonar, he admitted. I need to talk to her anyway. She's going to want to know what I found. Let her come to that conclusion herself if you can, Alicia suggested. Give her hints, but don't tell her outright. People are more willing to believe what they thought of themselves. Which is exactly what Zarakonar is counting on, isn't he? Gav stared at his hands. Played again. Meanwhile, we'll keep thinking all of us. Alicia said, you need to get moving before Valvina gets suspicious. He nodded, standing, and then he paused. Tell me something, he said. When Fiari suggested that I go the suicidal hero route, why didn't you turn him down? That's what I'm supposed to do to prove I've changed, isn't it? Or why did you? Why did you turn him down? The wall appeared to be of great interest, given how she suddenly found the need to study it. Link, hey. I'm going to pause and put him on a leash. The wall appeared to be of great interest, given how she suddenly felt the need to study it. Her fingers smoothed her gown against her thighs, seemingly without thinking about it. I don't actually wish for your death. Why not? That old self-destructive impulse, knowing it would hurt, but needing it anyway. Because I'm not you, she snapped, pushing back into the rote responses they both knew were expected of her. He had hoped for better. So had she, from the faint flush on her cheeks. Fiari, on the other hand, clucked contentedly to himself, enjoying the show. If I had been a good person, he said slowly, a person you liked, and suddenly I didn't remember you or who I was or anything anymore, and I stopped acting like the person you knew and stopped even wanting to be that person that you knew, would you say that person was still alive? If I suddenly started doing evil things, would you blame the old me? Or would you say the person you loved was gone and were free to hate this new person? You can't complain about paying for his mistakes when you are still enjoying all his advantages, she said with a sigh. You are hardly out in the road without a penny to your name. You have a village, a reputation that makes people cower in fear. Even your powers, you won it all by selfishly clawing through anyone in your way. You can claim not to be evil now, but even if you hadn't been evil, you would be nothing. He swallowed. What would it take? Her shoulders slumped a little as the fight drained out of her. I'll believe that you're not him when you stop enjoying what he got by hurting people. Gavarex is a dark wizard, dread lord of a mighty fortress and commander of fell powers. I don't know who Gav is, but he isn't anyone, and he doesn't have anything. So who do you want to be? Because right now, you're an imposter who wants credit for not actually being who you're impersonating. He didn't have much to say to that. Alicia gestured to the door. Go on, see if you can convince Valvina. She didn't believe he could, he realized. She had already written off the entire night as a failure. His big, brave gesture, and it was as incompetent as everything else he had done. The worst part was, Alicia wasn't even really disappointed. She had never expected him to succeed.